Okay, once again, a very good morning, everyone. So, we are just about to begin with the technical session of this 5-day FDP day one, session one. And I will just request every participant to join as soon as possible so that we can start this first session. That will be This session will be taken by Dr. N. Guru Prasad sir, and the topic will be overview of NBA and accreditation process. So we'll start this day one, session one. So a very good morning, everyone, from the Buddha Institute of Technology. I take this privilege to once again welcome all the participants as well as our speaker, Dr. N. Guru Prasad sir, who has having 28 plus years of experience in the field of teaching. Currently, Guru Prasad Nagraj is working as a professor in the Department of uh, Computer Science and Engineering at Global Academy of Technology, Bengaluru. Prior joining Global Academy, he worked at PES Institute of Technology and also as a director Technology, Gorakhpur, Uttar Pradesh itself. He is a graduate and postgraduate in computer science and engineering and completed his PhD in the field of operation research. To his credit, he has more than 55 publications at national and international level and also authored 3 books. He has produced 1 PhD and currently guiding 4 faculty members. He is a certified tutor for programming in C, data structure, Unix operating system, and Java. Was a corporate consultant for the firms like Wipro, Tata Infotech, Novell, Microsoft System, IBM. Apart from being a reviewer, editorial board member, member of advisory committee on various platforms, Dr. Guru Prasad is also the chief advisor for the Buddha Institute of Technology, senior and life member of professional societies like ISTE, CSI, IETI, ORSI, and International Association of Engineers. Also the former CSI student coordinator for Bangalore chapter and regional student coordinator. He is a motivational speaker who always believed that no amount of misfortune can ever diminish your dreams even by 1%. So I take this privilege to welcome Dr. Guru Prasad sir for the technical session. This technical session will be on overview of NBA and accreditation process. It's our privilege to have you as a speaker for this technical session.
Thank you, Mr. Ankur. Thank you very much. Can I share my slide?
Yes, sir, you can.
I think you have to give me access.
Wait.
All right. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to the presentation mode. Yeah, can you see the larger version of my PPT?
Yeah, sir, we can.
Okay. Good morning, all of you. And thank you, Ankur, for that wonderful introduction about mine. And it's indeed my pleasure to be a part of this beautifully sponsored 5-day online faculty development program on outcome-based education and NBA accreditation process. And I'm sure all of you are doing good in this pandemic situation. Let me welcome you all for my session on overview of NBA and pre-qualifier requirement. Now, in this particular session, before I tell you the exact agenda as to how I'm going to keep all of you busy for next 75 to 80 minutes, first and the foremost thing is we need to understand one thing which was very well articulated by Mr. Lewis Carroll, who said, if you don't know where you are going,
Sir, you are unmuted, sir. Sir, you are muted. We are not able to hear you.
okay, can you now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. And how about my screen?
It's visible.
Okay. Right. Am I audible and visible both, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was just telling that if I'm not aware where exactly I'm going, then any road will take me there. And that's the most pathetic situation of majority of us, particularly in the field of higher education sector. So what is it that I am going to cover in next 75 to 80 minutes is I'm going
So please unmute yourself, sir. So you're not audible.
okay now.
Yes, you are audible now.
I know it's getting
I guess some technical glitch is there. No problem.
yeah, okay. I think now it should be okay. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is what I'm going to cover. First, I'm going to give you a brief about International Engineering Alliance, followed by accreditation, a general policy that NBA follows about accreditation system in our country and the process. And once we are comfortable with this, we'll have a brief overview about outcome-based education, which is actually the crux of higher education today, as it was very well mentioned by Dr. Sudhir Agarwal in his inaugural, in the inaugural program. We'll also have a key look at the key components of outcome-based education, and then I will leave the platform open to all of you to have any queries which will be well answered by me. So when you look at this International Engineering Alliance, this is an alliance which is actually a non-profit organization. And this non-profit organization is basically consists of members from 41 jurisdictions, if I'm right, spread with 29 countries across 7 international agreements across the globe. The whole idea of this International Engineering Alliance is a punchline which says that working together to advance benchmarking and mobility in the engineering profession. So basically what IEA says is through the educational accords and competence agreements, members of the I think there's some technical glitch over here.
Yes. Sir.
Okay. I'll go in this mode only rather than the full-fledged mode.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that's what I was trying to tell you, that through this IEA, the members of the International Engineering Alliance, they basically establish and enforce certain benchmark standards for engineering education in our country. Now, there are 3 agreements covering mutual recognition in respect of the tertiary level qualifications in engineering. And these are significant accords which are the umbrella of International Engineering Alliance. Out of which the first one is the Washington Accord, the second one is Sydney Accord, and the third one is the Dublin Accord. In fact, the International Engineering Alliance administers these 3 educational accords across the globe. And when you look at the Washington Accord, it was signed in 1989 as an international agreement among bodies responsible for accrediting engineering degree programs. It recognizes substantial equivalence in the accreditation of qualifications in professional engineering, normally of 4 years duration. And when you look at the Sydney Accord, it was signed in 2001 and recognizes those qualifications which are normally of 3 years duration. And the last one, that is the Dublin Accord, is actually an agreement for substantial equivalence for those graduations or for those courses which are of 2 years duration. And for the benefit of the audience, the Dublin Accord was actually started in 2002. Now, the members of the Washington Accord was in place in 1989. As I told you earlier, it was signed as a mutual agreement between 6 countries. And when Washington Accord was in place in 1989, the 6 countries were Australia, Canada, Ireland, New Zealand, UK, and United States. And as days progressed, different countries became the member of the Washington Accord. As you can see in the slide, we had Hong Kong in 95, then South Africa in 99, and then in 2012, we had Russia becoming a member of the Washington Accord. If you look at this long journey, you will realize that India took, or almost it took India 15 years to become a signatory member of the Washington Accord. And after a lot of efforts and struggle, India finally became the member of the Washington Accord on June 13th, 2014. And alongside India, Sri Lanka also became a member of the Washington Accord. So I can say that India is officially a member of the Accord from 13th June 2014. And NBA, what we call it as National Board of Accreditation, is a signatory body that represents India in the Washington Accord. And this, according to me, is considered as a significant step of progress for the higher education sector as far as our country is concerned. Now, you need to know what exactly are the advantages of becoming a member of the Washington Accord in terms of how the Indian students can be benefited from it. Now, the first and the foremost thing is, as I told you, that this was originally signed in 1989. It means that when India became the member of this accord in 2014, it says that a student in India graduating from an institute, or you can say any college, which is accredited by NBA. Of course, you all know that the fundamental difference between NBA and NAC is basically for accrediting the college or the institute, but NBA is basically for the department, basically for the program. A student in India graduating from an institute accredited by NBA is eligible to practice as an engineer in his or relevant domain in any of the countries that have signed the Washington Accord. And it's really a great matter of pride for India to be a member of Washington Accord. Apart from it, the only body that is eligible for accreditation of engineering courses in our country is NBA. And we also need to know that there are 2 tiers as far as NBA is concerned. One is tier 1 and one is tier 2, which I'm going to touch upon after some time. The graduates who are eligible for recognition does not immediately guarantee the rules to be applicable. That means you have to keep in mind that the graduate must have completed the program after the date when India acquired the signatory status of becoming a member of the Washington Accord. That means after June 13th, 2014. That means to say indirectly, the institute should be re-accredited by NBA after 13th June 2014 as per the Washington Accord. And the last point we need to know as professors or members of the higher education sector of our country, that this does not holds good for IT professionals. Because for Indian IT professionals to be recognized by other countries, India should also sign the Sewell Accord, which recognizes the IT graduates of the partnering countries. And hence, to give you a nutshell of Washington Accord and NBA, I will put it like this, that the Washington Accord is a step forward to better the higher education system in our country, and it allows the Indian graduates to compete at a global market or at a global stage. Now, as far as NBA is concerned, it is basically responsible for assuring the quality of education, especially the programs like engineering and technology, the management, the architecture, the pharmacy, etc. Now, the question that comes in mind is why accreditation? We'll just have a quick glance on this. First and the foremost thing is support and advice to the technical institutions. So the purpose of accreditation by NBA is to promote and recognize the excellence in the technical education, particularly in colleges and universities, both at graduate and postgraduate levels. The institution, along with other stakeholders like students, faculty members, the parents, and the society, and the public as such, they are at large benefited from the external verification of the quality provided by NBA. And it also gives you the assurance of a good standing of an institution in terms of a better teaching learning process in place, better results, better placements, and so on. And the last point is, it enables an institution to state publicly that it has voluntarily accepted independent inspection. And above all, it has satisfied all the requirements for satisfactory operation and maintenance of quality in education. Why should institutions go for accreditation? First and the foremost thing is, let me tell you that it is not mandatory to go for accreditation, but to sustain in the market over a period of time, it is going to be mandatory for every institute to be accredited. So if your institution, and in particular your programs, as I told you earlier, NBA basically accredits the programs and not the institution. So it is quite possible if you have a couple of programs in your college or institute, maybe let us say computer science, electronics, electrical, mechanical, and if you feel that the computer science and mechanical are capable enough to go for accreditation, then you can only go for those two programs, leaving other programs. So it is not mandatory that all the programs of your institute should go for NBA, right? Whichever program the institute feels comfortable, yeah, they are confident enough in getting the accreditation, then those programs can always be gone for NBA. And once you are done with this, the advantage, the outcome of any institute or programs going for accreditation is the excellence in technical education. Absolutely no doubt, as I told you, that a better teaching learning process will be in place. The benchmark for global requirements, a national platform to attract better student intake. And that's what I have seen off late whenever students and their parents, they come for graduate admission. One of the thing they always ask nowadays, particularly in this part of the country, is whether your college is accredited, whether your program is accredited. And it is a proud moment for us also to say that the college is NAAC accredited and the program, the Department of Computer Science is NBA accredited, or you can say the Department of Mechanical Engineering is NBA accredited. The vendor of human capital to world-class employers, that's going to be the journey of a graduate who is studying in NBA accredited courses and accreditation institutes. Now, what does this accreditation signify and to whom? Of course, these are our stakeholders. For the parents, it signifies that their son or ward, is studying in a very good institute where teaching learning environment is conducive, and it is as per the accepted practices or norms. For the students, the student will always feel that it is a pride for him because he has entered the portals of an institution which has essential and desirable features of quality education, according to me. Of course, for the employers, when they come for your campus placement, they always look at students who are up to the mark. They should feel that they are hiring the best graduates from the higher education sector. So they always feel that the students who are graduating or the students who are passing out has competence based on well-grounded technical input. And I will add one thing for this. Nowadays, the employers are not only looking for well-grounded technical input, but they're also looking for well-groomed attitude, what we call it as a positive attitude. And of course, we have a couple of other stakeholders, and getting accreditation itself is a great achievement for any of the programs, and it signifies even for AICTE, the country, the industry, the alumni, and also the institution. Institution plays a very significant role because it signifies its SWOT analysis, the strength, the weakness, the opportunities, and also the threat, particularly the opportunities for future growth, which is very, very important. Let me quickly run through the general policy on accreditation. Any program or any college wishes to go for accreditation, you need to keep some guiding principles in mind. First and the foremost thing is you have to decide whether you want to go for NBA or you want to go for NAC. And when you are going for NBA, you need to understand that programs are considered for NBA accreditation and not educational institutions. As I told some times back, let us say the computer science and engineering program is going for NBA accreditation of a particular college. So maybe the other program, or no, electronics or civil, I'm just giving an example, is not going for NBA accreditation. That is very well possible. Next, the program that is going for accreditation should be offered by an educational institution which is formally approved by the concerned regulatory authority. It means that the program should be AICTE approved program which is going for accreditation, as well as it should follow all policies. It should fulfill all rules and regulations of the university to which that particular institute is affiliated actually. Very important parameter is the third one. Programs from which at least 2 batches of students have graduated will be considered for accreditation. So if 2 batches of students have not passed out, then you cannot go for accreditation. So the minimum requirement is 2 set of students should have graduated. That means once the college has started, from the time of its inception, you basically require 6 years to go for accreditation. But of course, this is a general policy, but let me also tell you that the process of going for accreditation in terms of preparation is not so simple as probably somebody thinks about it. It requires quite good amount of efforts put by the stakeholders in order to ensure that you get accredited at the end of the day. Programs are considered for assessment and accreditation only at the written request of the educational institution. So basically the college has to write a written request to NBA in terms of going for accreditation. NBA will not come at your doorstep and say, we would like to accredit you. We should basically have a written request. The 2-tier system. NBA basically follows a 2-tier system based on the institutions that we have in our country. The first one is Tier 1 and the second one is called as Tier 2. Now Tier 1 basically is applicable to all engineering programs which are offered by autonomous institutions or probably by university departments or constituent colleges of the universities, right? So if any of your institute is autonomous, affiliated to a particular university, then you can apply for NBA in Tier 1. But for all other, for example, the non-autonomous institutions, that is those colleges or institutions which are affiliated to a university, they can apply for NBA in Tier 2 category. But one of the common point is for both the tiers, whether it is Tier 1 or Tier 2, same set of criteria holds good, which have been prescribed for accreditation. Now we will be touching upon all these criteria in next 3 to 4 days of our FDP program. But to give you a jinx about the accreditation criteria, as it's quite possible majority of you would be aware that the total marks for accreditation criteria is 1000. Whether it is Tier 1 or Tier 2, it is going to be 1000 points or 1000 marks. And the entire accreditation is divided into 2 categories. What we call it as program level criteria, which is 780 points. And the second one is institute level criteria, which carries 220 points. So put together, you have 1000 points. But both these criteria are divided into sub-criteria. When you look at the program level criteria, we have 7 criteria, which NBA states as criteria 1 to 7. And the institute level criteria are actually called as criteria 8, 9, and 10. Now the 7 criteria which are there, which comes at the program level, the first one is vision, mission, and program educational objectives, where we are going to chalk out the vision and mission of the department, because we talk about the program. So vision and mission of the program, which should be in align with the vision and mission of the institute, along with program educational objectives, which will differ from program to program. The second criteria is program curriculum and teaching learning process, which is very, very important. Third one is program outcome and course outcome, which is actually the crux of the outcome-based education, because your entire OBE rests on criteria 3. The fourth one is students' performance. The fifth one is faculty information and contribution. Sixth one is facilities and technical support. And the last one is continuous improvement. So these are the 7 sub-criteria which come at program level, which we will touch upon by various speakers in next 3 to 4 days of this FDP, as I told you earlier. Now these 7 criteria will be at the program level. That means the department will be responsible for all data and the documentary evidence that needs to be produced when it comes to the program level criteria. And please understand that documentary justification plays a very, very vital role in your NBA. The documents needs to be produced for 3 years. And hence, earlier I said that you need 2 batches of students to be passed out if you want to go for accreditation. And if you really want to go immediately after 2 years, then you should start working on that probably when your first batch of students is either in 2nd or 3rd year. Because as I told, documentary evidence or furnishing the data is not so easy, because at every individual point, at every individual step, you have to justify what you are actually doing. Moving on to the institute level criteria, there are 3 sub-criteria at the institute level, which is actually called as criteria 8, criteria 9, and criteria 10 as per NBA norms. The criteria 8 is first year academics, which basically deals everything related to the first year in terms of teaching learning process, the theoretical subjects, the practicals, the performance of the students in first year, the faculty members who are handling the first year classes. All these things comes at the institute level, which is going to be actually assessed by the chairman of the NBA committee, which visits your institution. Criteria 9 is student support systems, where they talk about the mentoring, they talk about different facilities that is extended to the students, the safety measures that is taken in the campus for the students. And the last one is the governance, which includes the institutional support and the financial resources, which is basically at the, basically it is justified, the documentary evidence from the office of the head of the institution, whom we call either as a principal of the college or principal of the institute or director of the institute. So this is in a nutshell about the overall criteria of NBA, which actually amounts to 1,000 points. So more on each of these criteria we will be looking at a later stage. Now moving on to, once let us say you are interested in going for accreditation, you need to first understand the entire process of accreditation. My sincere request to all the participants who are listening, if at all you are interested to go for accreditation, please spend more time in doing the groundwork rather than taking hasty decision of going for accreditation. Because as I told you in the very first slide, if you do not know where you are going, any road will take you there. So basically the process of accreditation is a 4-step process. The first one is the initial stage. The second one is pre-assessment. The third one is assessment stage, and the fourth one is post-assessment, which we call it as decision making. Now you cannot chip in between, in the sense that you cannot skip the initial stage and you directly go to pre-assessment stage. No, that is not possible, right? That is why very clearly I have written it is 4 sequential stages which needs to be executed one after the other. And hence, what I say is applicant institution. That means any institute which is interested to go for MBA must complete the previous stage before proceeding to the next stage. That means what? If you are interested in pre-assessment stage, it implies that initial stage should be completed in all aspects. So once you complete the initial stage, then you can go to pre-assessment stage. So let us have a quick look on what are these 4 sequential stages and how we have to play role in getting MBA accreditation at the end of the day. Now the first one is the initial stage, right? Now what it says is at the very first step, if any of your program is interested to go for accreditation, the institutions which are willing to seek accreditation of its programs, you are basically required to register with the NBA, right? You have to register with the NBA. This is how the application for registration actually looks like, which is called as pre-assessment stage. So for the initial stage registration, you need to pay 1 lakh rupees plus applicable taxes, right? And you will get this registration login in the NBA website, that is nbaind.org, which is the URL of our National Board of Accreditation. And also keep in mind that this registration with NBA is a one-time process. You don't need to re-register every now and then. Once you register, you will get a username or a password, or we call it as a login and a password, and that will be applicable for any number of times you go for accreditation in future, right? And once you fill this initial registration form, as I told you, the institute will get a user ID or a username and the password. Okay. So what you need to do is you need to fill up certain details, and on submission of the basic information, the institute will receive a temporary login credentials through the registered email, right? And that is very, very important. But once you get it, the institution is expected to log in using credentials, which is sent by NBA in your email, and you have to key in certain informations such as the approval letters of AICTE, right? The details of head of the institutions, the details of the promoters, the bank details, and any university letters as applicable, right? And all these documents which you are going to upload initially should be duly authenticated by the head of the institution on each page. So please be careful when you are uploading the documents at the initial stage, because any document not uploaded, not furnished the data properly, will lead to the rejection of your application. And as I told you, the institute has to pay one-time registration fee of 1 lakh plus applicable taxes. And also we have to keep in mind that this particular process should be completed within 15 days of the initiation of the registration. So it's a very simple procedure in the initial stage. Only thing is, once you are confident enough that you people are ready to go for NBA, you people are ready to work towards NBA, then you can touch upon this initial stage. The pre-assessment stage, which is actually the second stage. So once the registration is done online, you need to basically log in through your login credentials, which is supplied to you by NBA during the registration process. And then this is how you get the application form for accreditation in terms of the date, the discipline in which you want to apply for NBA, then the tier, whether it's tier 1 or tier 2, and then also the programs which you want to go for accreditation, right? As I told you, the discipline will be, let us say, if any of the engineering college wants to go for accreditation. Say, for example, Buddha Institute of Technology wants to go for MBA, then they will select the discipline as engineering and technology, and the level followed by the tier, that is tier 2 category, because it is a non-autonomous institute, and the program. Any program that you are interested in going for accreditation should be selected in this particular forum. And apart from that, you should ensure you upload the latest copies of the approval letter from AICTE, and also any other appropriate regular authority. But any letter or any document that you upload, it should be authenticated by the head of the institution. And the pre-assessment stage, the application form is self-explanatory. It's a user-friendly, it's very user-friendly, very well actually drafted by NBA. And once you are done with everything, you click on the submit button for the submission of the temporary application to NBA for further processing. The next comes in the pre-assessment stage after application is the submission of the pre-qualifier. And this you have to be very, very careful, because after the generation of the temporary application, which was done in the previous step, the institution is basically required to fill what is called as pre-qualifier for the programs which you have decided to go for NBA. So again, as usual, you log into the NBA portal and you have a pre-qualifier column or a text box under the application. So you basically navigate to that particular area and then you click on the pre-qualifier. And when you click on pre-qualifier, the screen will come something like this, and you need to furnish the data correctly in this particular pre-qualifier. Now, basically NBA seeks certain data through the form of pre-qualifiers. Particularly, it will ask information about program, specific information it will ask in terms of when the program started, what is the intake of the program, all those things. Apart from that, it will also ask details like student admissions in terms of the admitted number of students in your course for past 3 years. Now, please keep in mind that the NBA will always look at 3 years data. And the nomenclature that NBA follows for 3 years is CAY, which stands for current academic year, then CAY M1, which is current academic year minus 1, and CAY M2, which is current academic year minus 2. So for example, if your current academic year is 2020-21, then your CAY M1 will be 2019-20 and CAY M2 will be 2018-19. That means it becomes mandatory for you to ensure that you have data along with supportive documents all the way from 2018 onwards, even though you are applying for NBA in 2020-21. As a matter of fact, in some places, particularly in terms of the quality of the students who took admission, in terms of the result progress, result improvement, in terms of placement improvement, higher studies, which we call it as continuous improvement, which is a part of criteria 7, you need to furnish data even for CAY M4. So basically you need to have data for 4 years. So apart from that, very important component in pre-qualifier is the information on faculty. And when we talk about information of faculty, it involves the total number of faculties which are on roll in your program, their qualifications, their designations in terms of how many are professors, how many are associate professors, assistant professors, and above all, what is the student faculty ratio, which is very, very important, what we call it as SFR. And then the other two things that pre-qualifier requires is placement ratio and the compliance status, provided you have gone for NBA earlier and they have given you some compliance which needs to be addressed. Now, this pre-qualifier is very, very important, because if this pre-qualifier is not up to the requirement, then you will never go to the next step. Your pre-qualifier itself gets rejected. So once you upload all these documents, you just have to move to the next step, which is nothing but submission of the accreditation fee. So you need to basically submit the 10% of the accreditation fee, right? So the NBA expects the institution to submit 10% of the total applicable fees as proposed by NBA itself. And the first stage is the fee is non-refundable, right? So that is what it is. Number of programs to be accredited and the payment to be made plus applicable taxes. So what is quoted here is only the payment, and you should add applicable taxes. Now say for example, if one program is going for accreditation, you need to pay the fees of 2 lakh plus applicable tax. And similarly, if 5 programs are going, then you should pay 10 lakhs and applicable taxes. Now, if all the pre-qualifiers applied through the application are not approved, right? Please understand, let us say in the previous step, you have applied for 2 programs to go for NBA and you have filled 2 programs pre-qualifier. Okay. Now, if both these programs, right, are not approved in terms of the pre-qualifiers, then the application is not processed further. Please understand. And once the application is not processed further, the institution will be informed accordingly by NBA. And all pre-assessment steps mentioned should be completed within 30 days from the generation of the temporary application. The third one is what is called as assessment stage. Now, assessment stage also has got 2 points or 2 parameters. The first one is submission of SAR. Now, this is very, very important because it takes tremendous amount of time for the department to prepare SAR. That is called as self-assessment report. When you compare this self-assessment report, in NAC, we call it as SSR, that is self-study report. And in NBA, we call it as self-assessment report. Now, this submission of self-assessment report and the assessment by the visiting team will consist of a couple of steps. First and the foremost thing is, once your pre-qualify is approved, let us say everything goes on well, right? Your data is perfect, your documents are perfect, and then your pre-qualifier approval is done by NBA. The institution is required to submit the remaining 90% of the fees for all the programs whose pre-qualifier is approved, right? So it is also possible that 2 programs gets your pre-qualifier approved and 1 program, your pre-qualifier is not approved. So you need to pay 90% of only 2 programs. And that's what I have specifically written, whose pre-qualifiers are approved. And once it is done, you need to download the prescribed format of SAR from the NBA portal, right? And this SAR, what is called as self-assessment report, contains more detailed information about the programs. What you gave, in the previous step, that is pre-qualifier, according to me, it is nothing but a starter. When you go for having a beautiful or fantastic lunch or dinner in a very good or posh restaurant, right? We always land up having a sequential flow of our food. First we go for, starters with soup and all those. I'm just talking about, vegetarian stuff because I'm a pure vegetarian. Sorry for that. And then you go for a main course followed by dessert. So this is also similar to that. The pre-qualifier, if you ask me to relate, I will say pre-qualifier is nothing but your starter and SAR is nothing but your main course. And you have to be very, very careful because this SAR contains more detailed information about the program to which you are going for NBA. And it also helps the institution to self-assess. And that is why it is called as self-assessment report. As a matter of fact, once you prepare your SAR, you can self-assess and allocate the marks, and then you can find out where exactly you stand. And then depending upon, you can always alter, you can always strengthen your SAR in a much better fashion. And hence, this SAR filling is an opportunity for the program or an institution to showcase the strength for evaluation and assessment criteria, right? But let me tell you, based on my experience, your SAR, whatever you are filling, it should be factual and it should not be descriptive or it should not be narrative. And please do not hook up by giving fake data in terms of any component. Whatever is there, you please apply, you please fill in your so-called SAR. Correct? And then once you log in to the NBA portal, you can upload the duly filled SAR. Right? And once you upload this duly filled SAR, the institution is invited to suggest dates for the visit. That means what? The NBA portal will ask the institution to submit 5 set of dates for the visit, right? So you have to specify the dates, right? You have to specify 5 set of dates. Please understand. Now, when I say 5 set of dates, each date set or each set basically consists of 3 days, because it is actually 3 days visit of NBA, which we normally do it for 2.5 days, right? So you have to give 5 set of dates where each set basically consists of 3 days, right? Friday, Saturday, Sunday of 1 week. That can be the first set of date. Next set of date can be next week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then third week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So like that, you can give Friday, Saturday, Sunday for 5 continuous weeks, which will become the 5 set of dates. Then once the institute is required to propose the set of dates, right? When you give 5 set of dates, you have to also keep in mind that during those dates, your regular academic classes and laboratories are going on. That means what? When the committee comes for visit, your regular classes and all academic activities of the program, which program? The program that you have applied for accreditation should be going on. You have to ensure that, correct? NBA team will not visit if your academic stuffs are not going to happen. And out of those 5 dates, what NBA does is it will select 1 set of dates and communicates the same to the institution. And then after receiving the concurrence from the institution, please understand, you have given 5 set of dates, and out of 5 set of dates, NBA will pick up 1 set of date and they will communicate to the institution. The institution gives the concurrence for those dates. That is very, very important. And once institute gives the concurrence, the dates of the visits are fixed and the visiting team of the NBA will come and conduct the visit. Now this is the the template for the proposed set of dates. Slot 1, slot 2, from you have to give from which date to which date. You have to give 5 slots and then you just click on the submit button. The second step is the visiting team to the institution for accreditation. Now that's what I told. The third process step, that is the assessment stage, consists of 2 things. The first one is the submission of the SAR and the second one is the visit team. Now this particular team is going to visit your institute for 3 days. And the question that comes in mind is, how many people are going to visit for NBA? Now basically what happens is the visiting team consists of 2 types of people. One is the chairperson and other one is the program evaluators, right? So there will be 1 chairperson and 2 program evaluators for each program, right? Now, for example, if in your institute, let us say 2 programs are going for NBA, right? One is, let us say, computer science and second one is mechanical engineering. So the total number of people who come as a part of the visiting team to your institution will be totally 5. 1 chairperson, 2 program experts for computer science and engineering, and 2 program experts for mechanical engineering, right? So totally it will be 5 people. And of course, this NBA will definitely check for the conflict of the interest as far as the visiting team is concerned, right? That means, what do you mean by conflict of interest? The conflict of interest, it says that the expert will not be from the same state of the institution which has gone for accreditation, right? Say for example, if Buddha Institute of Technology goes for NBA accreditation, now this institute comes in Uttar Pradesh, and hence neither the chairperson nor the program evaluator will be from the state of Uttar Pradesh. And this holds good for any institute which goes for accreditation across our country. It does not matter, right? So that is called as conflict of interest. Now, once the team comes to the institution for NBA visit, it will do the visit for 3 days, right? So the details of what they do in 3 days, the type of documents that they are going to check, all these things will be covered in another session, which is part of the FDP. Now let us say the NBA team has visited your institute. They have done the NBA process for 3 days, and then what comes, which is very, very important, is post-assessment stage. That is the result stage. Now this post-assessment stage actually consists of two components. The first one is processing of evaluation report, and the second one is continuation of the accreditation. Now, the process of evaluation report actually has quite lengthy procedure. Once the committee visits, the expert members, they prepare the evaluation report and they submit it to NBA. Correct? Now, once it is submitted to NBA, right, this report, in respect of the engineering programs, the report is actually placed in front of the moderation committee for consideration. This moderation committee will go through the evaluation report very seriously, and they identify what we call it as borderline cases. And the observation made by the moderation committee for such type of cases are actually communicated to the institution. Understand? The borderline cases are communicated to the institution for seeking necessary clarification. Correct? Within 10 days of the submission of the evaluation report. Now, NBA is very particular. They are very systematic about all these things. They are very particular about the timings, and they adhere to their procedure. They adhere to their process. Once the expert committee submits their evaluation report, within 10 days of submission of the evaluation report, NBA communicates to the institution for seeking necessary clarification. And response of the institution is actually sent to the chairperson of the visiting team. And the institute has to give response within 14 days. And once we receive the response from the institution, the observations of the moderation committee and the response from the institution is actually put forward in the, put forward to the so-called EAC, which is nothing but Evaluation and Accreditation Committee, in the presence of the chairperson of the visiting team. The chairperson who has visited your institute for those 3 days along with expert members will also be a part of the committee, where Evaluation and Accreditation Committee is going to look into two things. One, the response from the institution, and second, the observation made by the moderation committee. Now, in case of the programs of all other disciplines, the evaluation reports are considered directly by the EAC team, right? That means if there are two programs which has gone for NBA, and both the experts have submitted the report to the moderation committee, and the moderation committee finds a borderline case in one of the program and do not find anything in another program, then once the borderline case clarification is sought by the institute, then the program which has borderline case and the program which do not have borderline case, both will be presented in front of evaluation and accreditation committee. Then the recommendation of this EAC are considered by the concerned subcommittee of AAC, right? That is Academic Council, for taking a final decision on accreditation status. And once this AAC takes a final decision on accreditation status, that decision is communicated to the institution, right? Now, if the institution is not satisfied with the decision of the committee, right? Now, the communication from the AAC will go to the institution in terms of whether the program is accredited or not. And if your program is accredited, then all the hard work, all the efforts that you and your team members have put from past couple of months, you will see the result. You will see the charm on everybody's face that your hard work has finally paid off. But sometimes it will not. Despite putting all hard efforts, hard work, you may not get accredited as well. So once the accreditation status is communicated by NBA and institution do not agree with that decision, then you can go for the appeal by the institute. The appeal by the institution should be done within 1 month. With the requisite fee, you can appeal to the NBA by telling that you do not agree with the decision given by the committee members. Now, you also need to understand the commencement of the accreditation period. In case the expert team comes to your institute between 1st July and 31st December, then the period of accreditation would commence from the ongoing academic year, that is 1st July of that year. That means what? Let us say, for example, if the NBA team visits your college during September 2021, or let us say October 2021, and you get NBA, you get accredited. That means your accredited year will be from July 2021 onwards, right? I repeat, if the team visits your institute or your program during October 2021 and you get accredited, that means your accreditation date will be from 1st July 2021 for a period of either 3 years or 6 years or 5 years, whatever it is. On the other hand, if the visiting team visits your institute in between 1st January and 30th June, correct? Let us say they visit in March 2021. March 2022. Then the accreditation period would be from 1st July of the next academic year. Means if they visit in March 2022 and you get NBA, that means your NBA status will be from July 2022 onwards for a period of whether it is 3 or 5 years. Now moving on to the last point of my presentation is what is called as outcome-based education. Now this is the crux of the discussion. Let me tell you that whether you accept or not, our education system is actually broken. And that's the pathetic situation of our education system. What is OBE? Outcome-based education is actually a process that involves the restructuring of curriculum, assessment, and reporting practices in education to reflect the achievement of high-order learning and mastery rather than the accumulation of course credits, as said by Tucker in 2004. And any form of accreditation, whether it is NBA or NAC, the practice are heavily based on OBE. OBE is a theory that bases education around predefined goals, which we also call it as predefined outcomes. Now, why we require OBE? As a matter of fact, when you look at the paradigm shift in education, it has moved from teacher-centric to student-centric. Earlier, we used to talk about the objectives of the course, the objectives of the topic. But today, we don't talk about the objectives. Because of this shift, we talk about the outcomes. And globalization has brought a very clear shift from education, from transmission of expert knowledge to building of learner competencies, which actually includes a lifelong learning. So it's a never ending story as far as outcome based education is concerned. And if you look at this very carefully, one of the program outcome that is drafted by NBA is lifelong learning, which is PO12. Now, what does it mean? It means we need to have a very, very clear focus. And the focus is we need to understand our fundamentals very well, right? And once the fundamentals are very clear to our graduates, learning new skills or competencies will not be so tough actually. It basically will enable individuals to cope up with the demands of the rapidly changing workplace. And second, we need to prepare global engineers who will be capable enough to solve problems and shoulder the challenges which are not even known today. And that's what we say. We need to prepare our graduates to face the challenges of the society which is going to come tomorrow. What is OBE? A very holistic approach to convert a student into a great person on desired outcomes and defined goals. Correct? And theory that bases the education around predefined goals. And by the end of the educational experience, that means by the end of the graduation, each student is expected to have achieved that particular goal. The goal that is defined by the department, by the institute, by the teacher, by the society, by the parents, by the student. I mean, all the stakeholders. By the end of the graduation, you are expected to have achieved that particular goal. Only then we say the OBE is successful. So that is what is the paradigm shift. It is not what we teach, it is what you learn. More on this we are going to see in criteria 3, which focuses on course outcome and program outcomes. And that is where we say at the end of the course, the student will be able to. Correct? So it is not that I go to the class and say, today I am going to teach so and so topic. Correct? Maybe, for example, today I am going to teach Newton's law of motion. That was the situation yesterday. But today, because of the paradigm shift in higher education, where the focus is on outcome-based education, today when I go to the class, I say, at the end of next 1 hour, or probably at the end of my class, the students will be able to define Newton's law of motion. So after 1 hour, every student who is sitting in my class will be able to define the Newton's law of motion. And if that really happens, I have achieved my goal for that particular class. I have achieved what I had targeted. And this is actually for every class of a particular course and every course of a particular semester. And if you're talking about engineering, if you do it for 8 consecutive semesters for that particular student, you have achieved your goal, which is nothing but outcome-based education. When you look at the framework of OBE, you have 2 important parameters. One is the assessment and evaluation, and second one is the outcome. So when you look at the outcome, you have the different varieties of outcomes or categories of outcomes at 3 different levels. You have the institution at the top, then you have a program, and then you have a course, right? Of course, every component of this OBE framework is related to each other. So at the minute level, what we call it as a course, we have something called as course outcomes, which is also called as learning outcomes. And then we have program educational objectives, which are defined by that particular program or the department. The PEO will differ from program to program, the way how vision and mission gets differed. And we do this teaching learning process, which is course planning and delivery, because we need to achieve that particular outcome. So through proper teaching learning process in place, proper planning and delivery of the syllabus, usage of ICT mechanisms, modern tool usages, assessment tools, various types of learning activities, all these things basically plays a role for effective course planning and delivery. And once this is done, no outcome is achieved without assessment. And that is where we have what is called as assessment evaluation. So we do the course assessment. Of course, more on this we are going to talk in criteria 3 along with program assessment. And then there is also going to be what is called as institutional assessment. And then wherever there is a scope for improvement, we will definitely improve and we will rework, because OB is nothing but a cycle which keeps on rotating. And then over a period of time, we can proudly say that we have achieved our outcome in terms of not only the course and not only the program, but also at the institute level, we have achieved our vision, we have achieved our mission. And once that happens, the institute can reframe, the program can reframe its vision and mission. Now, this is what I had told you, keeping the previous slide in mind, the key components of outcome-based education, the vision and mission of the institution, of the department, the graduate attributes which are drafted by NBA. There are 12 graduate attributes, and the program outcomes, which are 12 program outcomes, which starts from PO1 to PO12, the program educational objectives, the program specific outcomes, and the last one is the course outcomes. Now, in a nutshell, just before I close my session, this is what OB is all about. I have divided this into 4 components. First and the foremost thing is you ask this question to yourself as a faculty member of engineering colleges, as a faculty member of higher education sector. What do you want the student to have or able to do? Now that is measured with knowledge and skill. And how can you help the student to achieve it? That is through proper teaching learning process. And believe me, if your teaching learning process is in place, you have good teaching learning methodologies, teaching learning pedagogy is adopted, then I don't find any reason why your student should not achieve what you have set as a target. Then the question that comes is, once you have a proper teaching learning in process and you deliver your lectures, you conduct, you do your lab and all those things, how will you know when your students have achieved it? Now that is where you go for assessment. You conduct different forms of assessment to the students throughout the semester to find out whether he has really achieved what you have set as a target, what you have taught, because you recollect what you said is at the end of the course, the student will be able to. So this assessment will definitely help you to get the answer for that particular question. And the last is, how do you basically close the loop? You evaluate and continuous quality improvement, because there is always a scope for improvement, which is nothing but the Kaizen rule. Kaizen rule says that there is always a scope for improvement, and that is how you basically land up closing the loop. And then you set a different target for yourself. You set a new target or probably a higher target, and then you start the OB process once again. So this is how I would like to wind out my session. The outcome-based education is purely based on continuous quality improvement, right? And this continuous quality improvement is actually the 4 components. One is say what you want, and then do what you say. Prove it and improve it. And once you improve it, again you say what you are planning to do it. So this is what is the continuous quality improvement of the outcome-based education. A simple line: if you do not follow outcome-based education, then there's no point in going for accreditation. So no outcome-based education, no accreditation. So let's target NBA accreditation. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, sir. Now, may I request each and every participant, as the session is now over. Now, if you have any query regarding this first session, you can have your query one by one. You can have this query one by one. Please, anybody? Is there any question, any doubt related to this first presentation? I mean, the first session presentation, which was an overview of NBA. If you have any problem, you can just ask directly to sir. So
Yeah, if
should I
anyone is
consider?
having, if anyone has having any queries, you can feel free to ask me, or you can also feel free to write it to me. I've already shared my email address. So, yeah, thank you very much.
I think, sir, nobody has any doubt.
Okay.
If anyone has any doubt, please raise your hand or you can ask the question directly. Or anything more, sir, you want to share any more information regarding this, you can.
There is a doubt in the chat box asked related to guest faculty or contract faculty. I don't know whether it is a doubt or, okay. Now the question is there, the guest faculty or contract faculty are counted in NBA. There is a clause for the guest faculty and contract faculty in terms of counting to NBA. More on that we will elaborate in the criteria 5. I think the session is on day after tomorrow, where you will definitely get some advantage for guest faculty. Yeah, any other questions, please?
Okay, sir. I think now we have to wind up this fantastic first session. So, on the behalf of Buddha Institute of Technology, I take this privilege to thank you for this session. It was an informative session from your side. So, thank you so much, and looking forward for the more session in coming this 4 days of the 5-day FDP program on OB and NBA accreditation. So, thank you from my side. Have a nice day, sir.
Thank you, Ankur, and thank you all of you.
The next session will start at 2:30 p.m. and the feedback link will be shared to you in the last session. So one feedback form for each day. Your attendance is being monitored. I also want to share one information with you all, that 80% attendance and 60% marks in the test, which will be held on the 4th of April, is the criteria to qualify for the certification of this course. So thank you so much. Professor Gurupasad sir, there was one request from every participant.
Yeah, please tell me.
Yeah, they are requesting me to share your PPT or any reading material related to this presentation, so that will be informative and will be useful for them for their future.
Yeah, definitely. We will. I will share the PPT once the session is over. We can share the PPTs probably at the end of the FDP program to all the participants who have attended the FDP. Definitely, right? We definitely will help every participant who has participated in this particular FDP program organized by Buddha Institute of Technology. It will be our pleasure, Ankur.
Yeah, true, sir, true. And we'll also share the link that is being recorded, okay, for every session in the last day of this FDP program. So not to worry for anything. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So we'll meet once again at 2:30 p.m. We'll have the lunch break, and then we'll meet at 2:30 p.m. The next session will be from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Okay. So thank you everyone.